All right, greetings. Hello. Ooh, weird. Okay, welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected, and I have random things in my mouth. How y'all doing? Good to see you. We are live on Rockfin, Callin, and on Z YouTubes. Hello, Rockfin people. All right, it's a Sunday. Everybody's having a mimosa brunch or something. I don't know. It's a nice day out over here. Nice day for a stroll outside, honestly. But good to see you. Let's get into it. I will waste no time. What are we talking about? We're talking about right now. We're talking about the warming of the planet. Why? Because it's warming. I know. Weird idea. Weird thought. I know it's not. It's not what all the cool kids are saying. It's not fashionable to say the planet is warming, but it is. Unfortunately, it doesn't really actually care about your opinions on the matter. It's doing it because it is. Because all observable data says that it is. So if you don't think that it is, that means you are living in a box or under a rock or with a fox or in some socks or eating lox, hanging out with jocks. Anyways, looking at things with binocs. Or maybe monox. Maybe you only got one eye. Monox. All right. The heat across the entire continent of Africa is incredible, reaching 40 C plus in the north and the south. 40 C is real hot, guys. Remember that? 40 C is hot. It's over 100. With Agrabis Falls in South Africa hitting 41.7 C, it is springtime, by the way. Springtime, not necessarily summertime. There's little escape from thermal intolerance in any region. In Venezuela, severe flooding is happening. What do we want? Floods. When do we want them? Now. Okay, here you go. It's floods everywhere, every day, all the time. Non-stop flooding. Severe flooding in several regions in Venezuela, where farmers have reported total loss of crops. Ooh. Total loss of crops. Yikes. That's not good. All right. We keeping it going. We keeping it rolling. Elliot Jacobson, professor, the professor. We'll just call him the professor. Your moment of doom for October 8th, 2022. Once again, cruise ships are the barometer of doom. Unusually low water levels along the Mississippi River. Mississippi? I said Siffy. Along the Mississippi River have caused sections of the river to be closed, impacting all northbound and southbound shipping traffic. Yikes. Closed. Cerrado. Shut. Let's look at this, shall we? Viking cruise ship can't finish voyage because Mississippi River is too low. Oh, I didn't even know they had cruise ships on the Mississippi. I mean, sure, I guess, why not? I never really thought about it in my mind. Like, cruise ships? You're going to cruise the Mississippi? I mean, okay. It's something people do. If you can think of it, people will do it. It's a riverboating. A Viking River cruise ship heading north up the Mississippi River can't finish its voyage because of low water levels. Interesting. Guess what channel is covering this news here? This channel. How many other channels are covering this news? None channels. Maybe a couple. Maybe one other one. I don't know. I'm sure there's a handful out there. Unusually low water levels along the Mississippi River have caused sections of the river to be closed, and etc. The closures have caused delays that will prevent the Viking Mississippi from completing the sailing underway and from reaching St. Paul, Minnesota for her next scheduled departure on October 15th. Wasn't that awesome? I know, it's kind of mean of me, but I want cruise lines to go out of business. I want them to go out of business now. So anything that impacts their business from keeping them from docking or, getting to their destination or embarking from their destination, I'm all for it. I know it's mean. People like cruises. I don't care. Cruises are dumb. Cruises are absolutely dumb. But, there's just a lot of unconscious people out there that are just like, oh, that sounds good. You want to go on a cruise? Okay, sounds nice. Cruise line said guests have been notified. Nobody thinks about climate change, by the way. Just nobody thinks about it. And that's probably why. I know. I'm being kind of mean, but nobody thinks about climate change because they don't want to. Nobody thinks about what they're doing to the planet because they don't want to. Why is it a very fashionable stance to not believe in climate change for humans? Because you don't want to. See? I don't believe in climate change. Just that easy. Stay cool, kids. Viking Mississippi can hold up to 386 guests and was built in 2022. All right. It's brand new spanky. It's brand new cruise ship. We just built it and put it on the water, and now there's no water. Dang. It wasn't the first time the Viking ship ran into low water trouble on this voyage. Tom Travato and his wife Trish were among those on the cruise when the ship came to a halt in the middle of the Mississippi River. Travato, who lives in Phoenix, told CNN the ship was stopped on Monday evening after a barge hit the bottom of the river and blocked all water traffic through the area. See, there you go. Those are the type of people that go on cruises. Tom and Trish from Phoenix. That's interesting. So it was blocked. The ship was blocked already because of another ship that got caught up in the low water situation, and then now they can't go anywhere. Amid drought conditions, low water levels along the Mississippi have forced several barges to run aground over the past week, the U.S. Coast Guard said Tuesday. Drought and abnormal dryness continue to develop and intensify from the plains through the Mississippi River Basin and have now extended further into the Midwest and Southeast. Low water levels are impacting barge traffic on the Mississippi River during the harvest, a crucial time, NOAA's site said. Extreme weather has taken lives and messed up travel plans across the United States this summer and fall. Wildfires threaten Yosemite National Park, flash flooding crippled normally bone-dry Death Valley National Park, and Hurricane Ian impacted tourist sites in the hard-hit Florida and the Carolinas. It just impacted tourist sites? That's all it did? Okay. It didn't wipe out people's homes and kill people? It impacted tourist sites. That's all that it did. That is hilarious. That is good coverage there. The Mississippi River situation has played out in other parts of the world this year. For instance, a merciless heat wave baked Europe this past summer, and the continent's fabled waterways fell to shockingly low levels. The Rhine River is one of Europe's most crucial trade routes and a wildly popular cruise itinerary replete with fairy tale castles and stunning views. Those cruises took a hit. Some river cruise ships were able to lighten the load and carry on. Others had to change itineraries. Oh, darn it. We're going to have to change itinerary. This is getting in the way of us having our cruise. Yeah, well, also, those low water levels like really messed other things up in Europe. And they didn't say anything about the Yangtze River. They didn't say anything about China. Super drought in China. Nope. Colorado River, Lake Mead, all the other rivers going very low. Nothing about that. Nope, nothing. All righty. Good coverage. And funny thing is, not one word about climate change. This is just weird. Like weird weather. They just said weird weather has caused people to die and messed up travel plans. But not one mention of the words climate to change. So, contrary to the cool kids who were like, oh, they're always talking about the climate change. No, they're never talking about the climate change. They rarely talking about the climate change. Sometimes they talk about the climate change once in a while. Let's keep going because time's wasting. So much time, so little to do. Strike that. Reverse that. Oh, I got this from Michelle Lee. There's another, also another situation that had very little coverage was a massive storm that hit Alaska a couple of weeks ago, and really trashed a lot of things, like did a lot of damage. And guess what? They're getting another storm. This is a picture of water rushing down Front Street. Front Street also refers to how the human race is living on the planet on Front Street, meaning on many levels that we're full of poop. That we are big bags of doo-doo. Full of shit is what I'm trying to say. We're just gaming the earth for all of the cool things that we're doing, and there's going to be a payback situation in which we're going to go. I don't know. No. Anyways, on Front Street in Alaska, there's a lot of water. As another storm hits Northwest Alaska, feds free up $9 million for typhoon damage repairs. Coastal communities in Northwest Alaska, already battered by a powerful storm less than 3 weeks ago, were experiencing high winds Thursday and bracing for more flooding as a new storm system hammers the region. High winds were expected to dissipate by Friday, but water levels far above normal high tide weren't expected to peak until Friday evening. Forecaster said, excuse me. Scatter reports of roof and window damage or blowing debris were emerging, including from residents in Point Lay, Point Hope, Wales, and Kivalina, where one of the first homes built in the village collapsed. One of the first homes built in the village collapsed. Anyways, the new storm comes on the heels of the destructive remnants of Typhoon Merbok, which last month left a path of destruction in western Alaska, washing out roads and flooding homes in 40 communities along about 1,300 miles of Alaska's coast. According to a federal summary, the storm produced hurricane-force winds higher than normal tide ranges and storm surges of up to 10 feet above mean high water. 10 feet. That's a pretty good storm surge. The U.S. Department of Transportation on Thursday announced the release of $9 million in quick-release emergency relief funds to help repair damaged roads and bridges. Much of that money has already been spent repairing substantial damage to roads in Nome, said Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities spokeswoman Shannon McCarthy. Front Street was essentially destroyed. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys aren't seeing this. Front Street was essentially destroyed, and said that the money was also used to fill the gap in the Nome Council highway breached by high water. Anyways, the new storm began hitting northwest Alaska overnight into Thursday. 90-mile-per-hour winds were reported at Cape Lisburne, an exposed point jutting into the Arctic Ocean north of Point Hope. 96-mile-per-hour gust was recorded early Thursday at about 2,000 feet. Anyways. It's just a lot of damage. A coastal flood warning remains in effect for the areas north of the Bering Strait in Chukchi Sea. Coast communities such as Kivalina and Shishmaref, water levels are expected to rise 3 to 5 feet above the normal tide line. All right. More from the professor. The Arctic is going crazy. The current GFS forecast for October 17th shows large parts of Greenland more than 24°C above average. Yikes. 24°C above average. Just another summer day in October. Where did the cold Arctic air go? Check out the east and central U.S. and Canada. That is called the old polar vortex, or see where the hot air is up here right in the Arctic where the cold air is supposed to be? Yeah, it's not there. Or Greenland where the cold air is supposed to be. So all the cold air has been pushed out into these other areas much farther south. While we have, above average heat in the west. Oh, you guys can't see that either. See that? See that? This is how climate change works. Climate change destroys the jet stream and how things operate naturally and really screws up the weather and pushes the cold air around in places where it's not supposed to be quite yet. And it's much warmer in places where it's not supposed to be so warm, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right on. Let's keep going. What's up, Rock Fenners? How you doing? Just looking at the people here. And Denver has a question. Oh. Regarding partisanship as a horn factor in news. Because the government and news work so closely together, it can be programmed and used to encourage partisan-rooted dismissal. Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, and that happens all the time, right? We are encouraged to really hate on the people that, don't agree with us politically or don't hold the same, quote unquote values that we have. Right. Or to smear people as, communists or Nazis or whatever, Yeah. Completely happening. There's more extreme temperatures going on in Turkey. It's very warm. Brutal heat in Turkey and the Middle East yesterday, October 7th. The temperature rose to 41.4 C at Haran, 40.2 C at Cizre? I don't know. This heat is unprecedented for so late in the year. 2 days ago, it was 44.9 C at Mehran in Iran. Wow. Highest this October so far. Almost 45 C in Iran in October. I guess that's pretty out of the norm, right? Yikes. We got more. There's more. We're going to keep going. All for a cheeseburger. Clearing trees for cattle is the leading driver of deforestation by a long shot. It causes more than double the deforestation that's linked to soy, oil palm, and wood products combined. Right. I was talking about this. We were talking about this the other day about not the meat industry being very bad for the environment. Yes, there are, just the regular old agricultural industry is, does damage to the environment, but not to the degree, not at the same speed and velocity that the meat industry does damage to, to the climate. Just one country was responsible for more than a third of all deforestation in the tropics. I guess which one that is. I don't know. I didn't even look at this, but I know which one it is. It's Brazil. Brazil. Top 10 countries for tropical primary forest loss in 2021. Brazil, DRC, Bolivia, Indonesia, Peru, Colombia, Cameroon, Laos, Malaysia, Cambodia. But Brazil is kicking everybody's butt by miles. Brazil is showing people how it's done. You guys want to see how it's done, how we really deforest the planet? Just sit back. Continuing to cut down the Amazon comes at a staggering cost. It's weakening the forest and pushing it closer to a dangerous tipping point, some scientists fear, beyond which much of it could turn into a grassy savanna that is an entirely different ecosystem. Such losses are a disaster for the climate. They're a disaster for biodiversity. They're a disaster for indigenous people, etc. It's not toilet paper or hardwood floors or even palm oil. It's beef. Clearing trees for cattle is the leading driver of deforestation by a long shot. It causes more than double the deforestation that's linked to soy, oil, palm, and wood products combined, according to the World Wildlife Fund. And worldwide beef consumption is increasing. In 1990, the world ate roughly 48 billion kilograms of beef and veal. In 2019, consumption surpassed 70 billion kilograms. And much of the beef-fueled deforestation is in Brazil, followed by Paraguay. All right. Oh, RFK Jr. You know, the man famous for speaking out against certain things going on with COVID is historically an environmental lawyer. And he's talking about flaring. The process of burning natural gas escaping from fossil fuel wells releases 5 times more methane than previously believed. Oh, I forgot. I was supposed to take a break. Here's my break. I'm going to go check and see if I got any coffees. Did I get any coffees yet today? You can support this channel at buymeacoffee.com/BlackBearNews. And going to check on the Rockfin tips. Did I get any tips? No, I did not. All right. I could take a call in the next 3 or 4 minutes if somebody wants to call in and call in. If not, I will continue. Anyways. This is from Children's Health Defense from October 4th. Anyways, he's just talking about a study led by researchers at the University of Michigan, is based on data collected during 13 flights over 3 years at the Bakken oil and gas field in North Dakota, as well as the Eagle Ford and Permian fields in Texas, which collectively have over 80% of all U.S. flaring operations. Flaring turns methane into carbon dioxide. While both are greenhouse gases, the former is over 80 times more potent than the latter in terms of its global heating potential in the 20 years after it is released into the atmosphere. Industry and governments generally assume that flares remain lit and destroy methane, the predominant component of natural gas, with 98% efficiency, the study states. Neither assumption, however, is based on real-world observations. The researcher simultaneously measured both methane and carbon dioxide at flaring sites. If the flare is operating as it should be, there should be a large carbon dioxide spike and a relatively small methane spike, and depending on the relative enhancement of those two gases, we can tell how well the flares are performing, explained lead author Genevieve Plant, an assistant research scientist at the University of Michigan. As co-author and Professor Eric Court summarized, the researchers discovered that there is a lot more methane being added to the atmosphere than currently accounted for in any inventories or estimates. Specifically, they found that due to inefficient combustion and flares being unlit 3 to 5% of the time, the average efficiency rate is just 91%, which works out to a 5-fold increase in methane emissions above present assumptions. Oh, well, that's interesting because a lot of scientists have been wondering where all the methane is coming from. There's a lot of methane getting into the atmosphere, and they're like, "Well, what is happening?" Well, here's one source, I guess. Elsewhere in the world, there's little direct observational evidence of flaring efficiency. Dr. Duran said, but globally says it's likely the case that combustion and flaring is less efficient than assumed. All right, we'll leave that there. I'm confused. Uh, sorry. We'll keep going. The target to cut emissions in half by 2030 was always fiction. The reality is that industrial civilization now looks set to exceed the predicted 16% increase in emissions by 2030 due to the current energy crisis and the hunt for whatever dirty energy countries can acquire for business as usual. Right. Right. Well, there's no stopping industrial civilization. Even when people are telling you, we're going to do all these things for climate change, you're not really going to do anything for climate change. Because if the conversation doesn't include taking apart most of the corporations of the planet and confiscating their wealth and then turning your attention to encouraging people to live much less consumptive lives and grow all their own food, and et cetera, et cetera. Unless you're talking about any of those things, you're not doing anything about climate change. So they're gonna, they'll do this little thing over here, and they'll encourage people to buy electric cars over here, or change your stove or your heater over here. But none of those things are really going to do anything. And what they really want to do is keep that gravy train a going. All right. Let's keep going. In the Philippines, more floods. Floods. How about some more floods? What do we want? Floods. When do we want them? Yikes. Pakistan, where they, had those very severe floods, they have another problem brewing, which is that there's a lot of places are still flooded out. There's a lot of standing water, and that water is now about to carry a lot of disease: malaria, cholera, dengue, waterborne diseases, and malnutrition. 17% of Pakistan is still flooded 2 months after its worst climate-driven disaster in history. Yeah. Let's see if we can listen to this, I guess. No. Maybe. Try it again. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to let me listen to it, but that's okay. I just really was reading it for the text of the tweet. Okay, so now is the time. YouTubers, I'm going to say peace out, and I'm going to continue the show on Rockfin. We'll do the rest of the show on Rockfin. Everybody else, you can hang out with me on Callin and on Rockfin. I will be taking calls at about 12:50 if you all want to call in there. And YouTubers, we'll see you tomorrow at noon. Peace.